Thank you, Jamie, for that really nice intro. I think he has sort of summarized what I'm going to say, so I can have your permission to step down now. No, just joking. Okay, as you can see, over the three sessions, key sessions this morning, the plenary sessions, they have touched on some very interesting ideas. It is truly humbling and a great experience for me to listen to great people like Tom, Mark, talking about, the kind of stuff about gaming, about how we can teach literacy, marrying both the sciences and the humanities. While here I am standing here, I'm a teacher trainer, teacher educator. I'm a teacher at heart. I've been in this profession for more than 30 years. It's my 32nd year now as a teacher educator. And even in my own PhD study more than a decade ago, my main focus is still on teacher professional development. That's something that's very close to my heart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a model that my colleague and I attempt to develop in trying to get teachers to integrate technology. Okay, so, but with a slight twist. What we have done is that we have added two, I would say, emerging concepts or ideas. That is Heutagogy, is the education 3.0 thing. It's about self-determined learning. So incorporating the concept of Heutagogy with something that's quite big in the States, something that in my country we are mandating, the government is mandating school teachers to start professional learning community. So, so what I'm going to share is something that is more bottom-up rather than something that is mandated top-down on the kind of professional development that that I would like to share the findings, the research that we are currently doing, and how this particular model at the moment is now being taken up by my research students in Malaysia, as well as two of my research students in Vietnam who are currently also doing their PhD with me. So all this thing happened while I was in Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. I've been in Sabah for 17 years, so most of my professional career as a teacher, educator has been in Sabah. Until the beginning of this year, I moved down to Kuala Lumpur to join the University of Nottingham, Malaysia for due to family reasons, because my kids are furthering studies in Kuala Lumpur, and therefore I thought, the best thing is to join them rather than being so far apart. So here I am. Allow me to quickly run through. Sorry. Okay. So the theme of the conference is on active learning and interactive teaching, something that, we are all so used to in this 21st century. Everybody talks about we need to inculcate, or we need to carry out active learning in our classroom. Teachers are supposed to be using interactive teaching. It can be any form. In this case, in this particular conference, the theme is using movies and multimedia. It could be any other kind of interactive tools. But the whole idea is about getting our learners to be active participants. And I think that's the way to go. However, something that's going to be the thing that I'm going to talk about is, while we are asked to do or to carry out 21st century teaching, the importance of the 21st century super skills, the 4 Cs, the attention on teacher training and development has not gained that much of attention. If I may say, I'm not very familiar with the scene in Korea, but in developing countries like in Vietnam and Malaysia, the typical model of teacher professional development is often the transmission model, the top-down model following the cascade style of training. And very, very hardly any on the transformative model, which is an idea that I'll be discussing, more of a transformative model of teacher training and development. So I'll very quickly run through, the usual outline of an introduction, literature review, methodology, finding, discussion, conclusion. I was told that the internet is not working, so I can't Kahoot it, so probably we can end a bit faster. Okay. So we are very aware of the challenges of the 21st century, how we can teach effectively in the 21st century. We know that ICT is all around us, and more importantly, our learners, the 21st century learners, if I may borrow the word of Mark Prensky, these digital natives, the way they learn and interact are very different. And teachers, most of us here, I do see some younger ones, so probably they are, the Y and Z generation would be easier to make the transition. But for digital immigrants like myself, trying to make this leap from the 20th century to 21st teaching century can become quite challenging. So, but nevertheless, as teachers, we need to be adept at 21st century teaching skills and to integrate learning with technologies. That's what our policymakers, that's what our government want us to do. But are teachers ready for this task? Certainly in my country, it is a problem. I'll be sharing the findings of a project that we come together. It's not something that was top down, it was just an interest group of teachers, all volunteers coming together wanting to, use technology and to make teaching and learning more fun, okay? So the argument that I'm going to put forth is that teacher training has always, teacher education and teacher training, we always attempt to package learning in a form of, the transmission model of delivery. And that has not helped teachers. I myself, as a teacher, have undergone so many training, have undergone so many waves of reform. And if you were to, there's enough of evidence in the literature to show that a lot of teachers don't teach that differently from the time they were trained. So obviously there is an issue of, transferring or educating and training teachers to embark on and to embrace these 21st century teaching skills, okay? Natoliki, in her recent PhD study in Australia, where she conducted a narrative inquiry into teachers who are undergoing change in integrating technology, highlights the one that is in if you can see, it's on your bottom left, where she says, rather, it is often those experiences that were self-determined, heutagogical journeys of discovery, discomfort, and breakthrough, which shape teachers' identities, beliefs, and behavior. And this is something, this is the idea that I would like to focus on, that, changes that we want teachers to embrace is not something that can happen overnight, not definitely through the kind of cascade model transmission teacher training, and you expect teachers to then make that leap. Oftentimes, there are things that we don't look at, for example, their identity, their beliefs, and their behavior, that we need to allow teachers to explore, we need to allow teachers to go through this journey of discovery, that discomfort and that breakthrough. So I'll be sharing some of the findings coming out from the mouth of the teachers who were the volunteers in the project, that it takes time and it needs to be done in a proper, in an environment where they feel safe to experiment. So allow me to move on. And just to show why it is so important to focus on teacher. We have enough of evidence, research evidence. I could go on and on, but I've just basically assembled a few here to share why teacher makes a lot of difference to students' learning. Okay. There are evidence that student achievement is directly related to the investment and support of professional development for teachers. That's very important. In fact, in my own PhD study, I found that, and in fact, Fullen himself, the father of educational change, talked about how much money we invest in coming up with grand ideas, plans, and all that. But not much of attention is given to teacher support of professional development for teachers. And there's also evidence to show that PD that is comprehensive, more importantly, sustained, intensive, and collaborative in nature, actually help to improve teachers' effectiveness. And indirectly, when teachers are effective, obviously, student achievement will go up. So teacher quality is directly related to the quality of professional development teacher receive. And that's the focus of today's talk. So, still on effective professional development learning, about teacher learning, about developing quality teachers. So there are many models out there, best practice models for teacher professional learning that seem to look at a few important criteria, and they have been proven to be quite successful, although not, we have pockets of success, not truly large-scale changes like what is happening in Vietnam. I'm pretty fortunate to have 4 research students, PhD students from Vietnam who, so I know a little bit about what's happening in the country. I was invited to do some teacher training over there, and the scale that they are going at is really scary. It's about how many teachers have undergone professional development within a year or 2. So it's about doing it fast and quick. Neglecting the most important thing, i.e. that it takes time for teachers to change their practice. Okay, so what is happening in Vietnam currently was something that happened in Malaysia not too long ago, because I was one of those people who were asked to undergo training due to a certain change in our curriculum, just a day of training, and I'm supposed to be responsible for making that curriculum work within the context of my class. In fact, I had the misfortune to be observed by what we call as, in Malaysia, in Malay word is Nazir, or in English there would be inspectorate, who came to my class and observed me, and after that gave me a big, really bashed me up for not doing what the curriculum wanted me to do. But I only had 1 day of training, and I don't know much about that. But I was expected to bear the brunt of the innovation or the change expected of me. So that's something that I would like to delve a lot more into. So what we would like to propose is, it's not a new model. It's not really a new model, so to say. What we would like to propose is something, a model that leverage on the work of Lee and Kim in 2014. They call the second prototype model, where it includes, they call it the TPAC. So basically, we are talking about improving teachers or getting teachers to integrate technology, which is well known. I'm not going to talk about TPAC too much. It's well known. Kohler and Mishra's model TPAC is well known all over the world. But what Lee and Kim did, interestingly, is that they brought in an instructional design model called the IDD-IRR. Basically, it's very much similar to the AD design model. Okay, so basically IDD-IRR is the introduce, demonstrate, develop, implement, reflect, revise. So there are 6 stages involved in this instructional design model. But what we are adding on to that is that we would like to work a little bit more on the context of how teacher professional development takes place. So i.e. the whole idea of PLC and Heutagogy comes into the picture. Okay? So we wanted to, other than just an instructional design model, we also wanted to bring in the importance of teacher working together, the PLC, and also something that comes from the teacher, bottom up, rather than something that is mandated top down for us to do. So that's how the Heutagogy idea came into play. So what we wanted to investigate, and in this case, I'm sharing this story with you, with all of you here. To what extent is this particular model that is conducted through a PLC, Professional Learning Community, help teachers to integrate technology with pedagogy and curriculum content in the classroom. Okay, how this model helped them. So later I'll be sharing with you some of the anecdotes as well as verbatim quotes from these teachers who have volunteered in this program and who have participated in this program. It's still an ongoing program that is happening in Sabah, in Kota Kinabalu specifically. We actually are trying to sell this idea to the State Education Department of Sabah that this type of professional development does not cost any money. What we need is a little bit more time, understanding, and support, and maybe time off for teachers, okay? Because everybody knows it is very expensive to carry out large-scale professional development activities. So what we want to say is that this particular model can work in a context where, allowing teacher a little bit more time to go out, they should be able to get it done. So very quickly, I'll just run through some definitions, and I'll just share a little bit about the framework that I'm sharing, I'm going to discuss about. So basically, I'm sure you are aware of this term created by Stewart Hayes and Chris Kean on Heutagogy, or they are more famous for the PAH continuum, where P is pedagogy, A is andragogy, and H is Heutagogy. There is a newer term now called pedagogy, which is really interesting, something that I'm actually doing. But let's not talk about pedagogy, but it's more of Heutagogy that I'm interested. So in pedagogy, the main idea is actually on very much teacher-centered. Moving on to andragogy is more self-directed. It's more adult learning, so it's more self-directed. But in Heutagogy, it's not about self-directedness, it's about self-determined learning. That means the learners having the capacity and the capability to be able to creatively solve a problem themselves. So being autonomous, being very confident of what they can do because they have the capability and the capacity. So that is a very brief definition of Heutagogy. As I mentioned earlier, the two key ideas in Heutagogy or in self-determined learners or in self-determined learning is that the learners equip themselves with competencies and capabilities. Competency, we have done this in the andragogical model or in the Education 2.0 model, where what we want is to equip the teachers with the competency. Now that is not enough. Competency is just the ability in acquiring knowledge and skills. Agency is still from the outside. Why do we want to move to Heutagogy? Is because we want to move the Heutagogy from outside to inside the teacher. So the teacher themselves making the call for change or making the change themselves. They are autonomous, they are confident, they know how to go about doing it. So what exactly? So it's about developing the capability. Obviously, capability is a very difficult construct to measure, but currently one of my PhD students is looking into that. So it is, what exactly is capability? Is the confidence in his or her competency, and as a result of that confidence, the ability to take appropriate and effective action. okay, to take appropriate and effective action to formulate and solve problems in both familiar and unfamiliar and changing settings. And that's important because teaching is really, really very difficult. I don't think there's a similar context in all of us. Every day, every class is different. So if teachers are not equipped heutagogically to deal with these changes, this familiar and unfamiliar situation, then they will always be dependent on someone to tell them what to do. But if they are empowered, if they have that capability, not only the competency, but also the capability, then they should be able to then go about, you know, thinking in a novel and creative way to solve the problem. Okay? So in this case, I'm relating to technology integration. So what we try to do is to allow these heutagogical principles. There are a couple of principles there that we adopt into the model to allow teachers for them to, you know, to be empowered. Okay? So among others is the self-determined. There are a lot of others which I don't intend to spend time, but obviously if you want to read, there are Stewart Hayes and Chris Kenyon, they have written a book called Self-Determined Learning, which is really, really very interesting to read. So if you may want to read more about that. So there are, what we try to do is to incorporate some of these principles into the design of our PD. Okay? So I think suffice to say, the model that we try to bring into discussion is that it will be very much, to a certain extent, it's still andragogical because it's still teacher-led to a certain extent. It's also teacher-directed, but more importantly, we allow them to be able to take charge and they themselves they decide what exactly they want to learn in self-determinant way. And this diagram here, in a way, sort of summarize the design that we incorporate in our model. So there are a couple of main principles involved in heutagogical learning. Among it will be double loop learning. That's a very key characteristic of heutagogy as opposed to andragogy, which is single loop. This is double loop learning. Double loop learning is not just action research solving a problem, but involve a second round of revision. So it's more iterative, it's more cyclical. So that's the reason why double loop learning is more important. I think teachers should be given this opportunity for double loop learning before they embrace or take on board a newer way of, that confidence to enable them to integrate technology. And obviously, another key characteristic is capability development, learner-determined learning, non-linear and learning approach in an informal context, but importantly is that group collaboration. And so what we want teacher to do, actually, using the affordances that we have in Web 2.0 tools, they will be able then to integrate content. They will be able to create content. They will be able to connect and as well as to work collaboratively within an environment that allows them for social collaboration. Okay, so why is it so important to incorporate this idea? We felt it is necessary because 21st century demand that. It is something that is not only gaining interest in the business sector or in the job market, where they want people who are creative and competent, who are able to adapt quickly and in an environment that is continuously changing, in a workplace environment that is highly complex. If we are going to train learners, we are going to produce learners who are adept to this, then teachers should likewise do the same. We need to not just talk the talk, but also to walk the talk and walk the walk. So when combined with technology that we have, heutagogy offers a very good, in a way, a holistic framework for teaching and learning that supports development of self-determined autonomous learners. So if we want to develop learners who are self-determined, who are autonomous, teachers likewise should also be given the opportunity to learn to be self-determined and also to be autonomous. So that's the first concept. The second concept involves the twist to the model that we are bringing in is the idea of PLC. I don't think it's a new idea. It's been around for more than almost 2 decades now. Very popular in the US, where there is a special dedicated day where teachers actually don't have to teach. They come together and they discuss on things, anything that matters to increase students' achievement. I had the privilege to work with 2 teachers from 2 university lecturers from US, and we presented in ILA in 2014 in Brisbane, where we talk about this PLC thing. And what is interesting about the whole idea about PLC is actually it's a very simple idea. It's just putting teachers together, and with a shared mission on how we can actually improve learning. It's a very powerful way of getting teachers to work together. So it is basically an ongoing process in which educators work collaboratively in recurring cycles of collective inquiry and action research. It's an ongoing action research and ongoing inquiry with the idea, with the aim of better results for the students. So when teachers become effective, results will improve. So basically, PLC operate under the assumption that the key to improve learning is continuous, job-embedded learning for educators. And that's the model that we are arguing for. We are talking about a professional development model that is ongoing, okay, that obviously has to be something related directly to what the teachers are currently doing. It might be difficult, but it's not impossible. So getting teachers to work together. Okay, these are the key characteristics of an effective PLC. I have no intention to go through this list of key characteristics, but the key idea here is that there is obviously a shared mission, values and goals about students' improvement. It is a team who will work collaborative together, and the focus is on how they can improve them. If in the case of teacher professional development, then it will be focused on how to improve instruction, how to be a more effective teacher via technology integration, looking into sharing of best practices, including the challenges faced. It's basically very action-oriented, action research, experimentation, learning by doing, and very committed to continuous improvement, and of course, results-oriented. And according to Rick Dufour, who is a big name in the PLC scenario, peer learning and support is very important. It's awfully important because teachers want to learn, and good teachers want to mentor. So capitalizing on that, we can create virtual group via social media to help to provide continuous mentoring as well as self-determined learning. And this is how the design is actually conceptualized, okay? So we take on board Lee and Kim's model on the TPAC IDD IRR model. Basically, it is an instructional design model that starts from introducing, in this case, if it's technology, then it will be some form of tools that teachers can use. For example, how to teach active learning. We can introduce them to the different platforms or tools that can get students to interact in an active manner. Okay? So introduction and demonstration. That can be done through various models. I'll be sharing that in a very short while. And then moving on to the developmental stage where teachers are allowed to work together, collaboratively work together to develop lessons on how they could effectively integrate technology. So leave them some time to create those lessons and then get them to then implement, then get them to reflect on it, and then get them to revise if it's needed. And usually it will involve some form of revision because trying out the first time usually is not very successful. So having done that, they come together, they share best practices with their colleagues and peers. They will then be able to then go back and improve on it. So that's iterative and cyclical in nature. So this IDD-IRR model have been proven to be very successful in Lee and Kim's work in the US, and is reported you can see in the reference later. And we particularly like this model. I personally believe that teacher training and teacher education, we need to have some form of model, educational technology model to follow on, because it's very difficult to really ask teachers, okay, you get together and get it done. So there will be some form of instruction needed, some guide, if you like. So there is a model to guide them through. So what we have done is that we have added the PLC. We call it our prototype model. We added the PLC. We work on the context. So instead of just the model on its own, we added the PLC, which includes a couple of things that I mentioned earlier, the 5 dimensions or the characteristics of PLC and the big ideas of that. So when teachers are allowed to go through this model, which I'll show step by step what we have done, we hope then the learning or the knowledge gain or the skills or the capabilities developed will be more sustainable, will be something that will bring about the change that we want to see in them. So I think I've touched on the big ideas and the 5 dimensions. So allow me to then move on to this particular model. Why did we work on this model? We believe that this model actually is comprehensive enough to engage teachers, particularly in-service teachers, in active collaborative curriculum development, where they focus on learn, share, discuss, reflect, practice, and evaluation. So going through that process. I'm aware that time is not on my side. I will move on a little bit faster. So just the context, it's in Kota Kinabalu, where a lot of work is done there for the past 2 years. It involved 15 inspirational teachers. I call them inspiration because these teachers volunteer their free time. They come in during Saturdays. Whenever we can find a time, we will gather together. And plus my own training teachers who are ever willing to help. These are very techno-savvy, and they are there to help. We have a dynamic district education officer who so happened is my collaborator in this study. And we have also 3 teacher mentor or teacher coaches in school. They are called the SISC officer. Okay, so, and the whole idea is documented in this bottom-up teacher-initiated effort of technology integration in this particular website, Going Digital. So you can click on the link to see some of the work that we have done. Basically, what we wanted to do is to explore some of the potential, how we can actually integrate technology, okay, using or via a professional learning community. So instruments involve questionnaire, interview, written reflection, both quali-quanti data collected. The teachers, basically the volunteer teachers are teachers who are quite experienced. They are aged from 36 to 51-year-old, and they have at least more than a decade teaching experience, some 26 years of teaching. So we have an instance of a teacher who have never used technology before, who felt so scared of using technology, finally actually using technology. So it involved sessions, a few sessions. Session 1, introduce and demonstrate. Session 2, development. Session 3 and 4, implementation, reflection, and revision. And they follow a model of teacher sharing. Okay, so basically we get these teachers together. Fortunately, a couple of grants to support, to fund the food and also, their transport expenses and all that for them to come together. But other than that, it's all free will. Okay, so session 1, you can see in the pictures here, some of them are my student teachers, and most of them are the in-service teachers who come together and we introduce them to the different Web 2.0 technologies and how that could work, right? With pre-service teachers, it's not an issue. They have done that in their assignments in our teacher program, so there's no issue with that. They are more than happy to share their experiences in using technology with the in-service teachers who are quite scared of using technology. So in the second session, they came together, and then obviously they also went back and they developed the lessons. Session 3 and 4 is more about getting them to come back together and share what they have implemented. The sharing session includes reflection and also talk about how they can better improve their own experiences when they go back to their own school. So this cyclical model. Okay, and yeah, that's repeated in the 4th session. And that is, besides the face-to-face session, we have a website created to support teachers' learning, and we name it Going Digital. You could click on the link and go in and have a look if you are interested in some of the work that we are doing. So this is the model. I don't think I have the time to explain at great length, but basically what we are doing is that we support both face-to-face and online continuous support. The key idea is continuous support. Taking them through the model of IDD-IRR, which is the instructional design model. In this cycle that is iterative, that's repeated over time. So this has been touched on, and let's move on to the findings and discussion. So we wanted to know, we did a survey to find out what they think about the model. Is it effective? All of them said it was helpful. 1/3 of them said that the model provided them with the knowledge and how to effectively integrate technology. Okay, so that's important for us, a very good feedback. Yeah, so I've touched on that. And in terms of the qualitative finding, the reflection that we have done through thematic analysis, we found 3 emerging themes. Firstly, on how that model helped to raise their awareness on how important technology is and how technology integration could be done. Secondly, they also talk about they themselves experiencing technology-based lesson and how that actually increased their effectiveness in teaching. And thirdly, they also talk about the PLC environment where they felt really nice, they felt they were well supported, they were motivated, and they want to continue to learn, and they want to continue to inspire their other colleagues as well. So these are further evidence of the qualitative data where they say, for example, some of the verbatim quotes here, technology is part of our students' lives, so we need to keep up. We have to equip ourselves not to be left behind, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the, based on the follow-up interview on this reflection, they all believe that technology builds the students' confidence. It's very important to have that. And it can help to develop soft skills, such as creativity, communication, and collaboration, and helps to prepare students for real-life setting. So that's the first one. The second one on how technology-based lessons have also increased their own teaching effectiveness. They say that technology makes giving feedback to students a lot easier. If you go to the website, you see how they use Padlet. Padlet help them to provide feedback that is more instantaneous and helpful. That they found useful. They talk about how they can, the Google Doc help them to provide faster feedback to the students without really needing to print out the work. Okay, and so that is important. In the interview, they mentioned that students became more engrossed in the task. They seemed to cause less troubles. And the classroom became more manageable when they start to incorporate or integrate technology in the class. And the teachers seem to enjoy teaching. okay? Because students talk less. In terms of how they felt supported and motivated, the model helped them to feel supported and motivated. They say that kind of environment should be continued because it helps them to work in an environment where it's non-threatening. They say the facilitators are friendly and they are helpful, they are willing to teach. And importantly, it helped them to open up their mind. It helped them to realize that as teachers, they can do wonders with technology. And one teacher even said that we are converted 21st century teachers. Before that, she has actually never used technology before. She's so afraid of technology because she does not want to appear stupid in front of her students who are very techno-savvy, okay? And there's another teacher who said, ripples spread out when a single pebble is dropped into water. And this is the teacher who have 26 years of experience. For her, it was an eye-opening experience being introduced to technology, and then she herself getting her students and her being involved in technology integration in her own lessons with Form 6 students. Okay, so basically, in summary, teachers are motivated and inspired to integrate technology. They claim that the lesson has increased, the model has helped them to increase their teaching effectiveness. That the model also provided them a structured approach that is both explicit and systematic, something that they can work on and from. And the findings seem to support Lee and Kim's study, and is similar to other PLC research conducted elsewhere. There are a few implications. It seems that it's important to create continuous support. So having face-to-face support is good, but importantly, there should be online and social media support. In our case, it's not only the website, but we also constantly connected through WhatsApp and Twitter. Also opportunities for sharing of best practices and reflection. Importantly, in an environment that's non-threatening with helpful and supportive peers, they feel good sharing their practices, be it a success or disaster with their peers. They feel safe, even though they are critical, within an environment that is supportive. Okay? And obviously, there are limitations to this study. Obviously, we are still looking for evidence in other contexts in other countries. Firstly, because those teachers who participated in this study, they are voluntary teachers. And as a result, they might be biased. And their enthusiasm might have rubbed on to create these so-called positive findings that we had. The model must be implemented in a very supportive PLC environment. And in this case, they are all friends who share the same vision of wanting to improve their learning. Not too sure in a case where teachers are not so interested in doing their job, especially in a mandated environment where in my country, teachers are forced to attend PLC without any clear or without any shared vision on doing what exactly they want to do. And finally, it may not actually work well with other PLC grouping with teachers who are very adverse to change. Okay, that's the references. Originally was supposed to do some Kahoot, but I think it's okay. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee. Could you just go back to your email and stuff like that? Yeah, cool. Yep. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but I think we can all agree that it's an excellent example of a researcher who's taken his research agenda and then applied it to a practical situation. So I think we can all applaud Dr. Lee's work. If you want to get in contact with him, his email information is somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The last slide, yeah.
All right, excellent. Let's give him one more big hand.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.